Fox 61 News at 6 starts now.
Now at 6, crime concerns in one community. A handful of murder arrests in just 7 days. How officers are getting criminals off the streets.
Plus, Christopher Francis Sweeney is behind bars, but questions remain about how he got out in the first place.
The problem is not so much generally making it easier to hold people without bail. The problem is identifying the people who should be held.
The calls for change to keep violent offenders locked up.
Plus, blown out of the sky, Sikorsky loses a major military contract.
We were taken a little by surprise. We thought we had an incredibly strong proposal.
The impact the decision could have on Connecticut residents.
Plus, an alarming rise in homelessness as temperatures drop.
The amount of people that are currently sleeping outside, including families and children, has gotten extremely concerning.
One local organization working around the clock to make sure everyone has a place to stay the night. The Fox 61 News at 6 starts now.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us here on the News at 6. I'm Ben Goldman.
And I'm Jen Bernstein. Violent crime too big for one city to tackle alone? Well, Waterbury's police chief thinks so, and he wants lawmakers to start talking about it before they come back from the holiday in the next legislative session.
Fox 61's Samaya Hernandez joining us live at Waterbury Police Headquarters with the chief's urgent message tonight. Samaya.
Good evening, Ben and Jen. Well, so far this year, 15 people have been killed here in Waterbury, and that's up from 11 this same time last year. The chief says that is alarming.
You got shot.
You got shot? Where's your gun?
I haven't got none.
Where's all the bullets from?
The other people got shot. Everywhere.
Where you shot, man? You shot too?
Everywhere.
Waterbury Police Chief Fernando Spagnolo says he's still traumatized by a November 29th triple shooting that left 2 men paralyzed.
You know, I'm concerned. You know, it takes its toll on someone.
Spagnolo held a press conference Tuesday saying the Brass City hasn't seen violence like this since the 90s.
The majority of them are targeted in their personal conflict, right? The majority of them are group violence or gang related.
Police identified a person of interest in the triple shooting. Spagnolo's officers have taken 215 guns off the streets and brought murder charges in 13 of 15 cases this year. He says much of the violence is personal conflict driven, and he's concerned about people who cycle in and out of prison.
The unique shift that we do see, especially with these younger folks that are engaging in violence, is there's not a lot of drug activity.
Spagnolo says his department is understaffed and up against larger problems he wants lawmakers to address.
I think there needs to be a lot of conversations about the judicial system as it operates right now, bond reform as it was enacted several years ago.
Lawmakers have made a host of changes over the years, from bail reform under the previous administration to police reform just last year. Representative Geraldo Reyes lives here in Waterbury and represents this area. He says it's among the poorest in Connecticut.
We have to go back. We have to go back and take a look at the whole entire process, from the judicial right through the arrest and how we put people back onto the streets.
And the chief is also pleading with the community to help police stem violence. If you know someone who has committed a crime, or if you know someone who has an illegal gun, police want to hear from you. We're live in Waterbury. Samaya Hernandez, Fox 61 News.
All right, Samaya, thank you. The heinous nature of the crime Christopher Francis Sweeney is accused of committing is sparking a renewed discussion about the death penalty and reform of the judicial system here in Connecticut. Fox 61's Matt Caron explored these complex issues.
This is truly a horrific crime unfathomable nature.
Christopher Francis Sweeney is accused in the gruesome dismemberment killing of his 11-month-old daughter, charged with murder with special circumstances, a heinous crime punishable by death, but not here in Connecticut, where capital punishment was outlawed a decade ago.
I do think the conversation needs to happen again, because if these policies continue where criminals are given a revolving door, there has to be some level of potential deterrent for the most heinous type of behavior.
So would the governor be open to taking a second look at the death penalty?
I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. If it was a deterrent, if it would make sure that events like that, crimes like that, were less likely to happen, I would you'd say, hey, I've got to look at it. But I see no evidence of that.
My informal Twitter poll of 74 respondents found that 75% of them are at least thinking twice about Connecticut's death penalty decision. Here's a list of Francis Sweeney's criminal past, including both convictions and pending charges. He spent 9 years in prison for nearly pistol whipping a man to death, but was out on parole.
You do not let anybody out who's a danger to society. Is that a perfect metric? Can we always know that we got that right? No, obviously not. In this case, did we get it right? Obviously not, and that was dangerous.
But despite calls to lock people up longer, Connecticut is trending in the opposite direction. The state Supreme Court just put in place a mechanism that makes it easier for criminals to get their bail lowered.
Clearly, mistakes are made in both directions. And the problem is not so much generally making it easier to hold people without bail. The problem is identifying the people who should be held. And it's extremely difficult to predict who is going to pose a danger to society.
Nearly every year, the state faces proposals to eliminate the bail system altogether, which would allow offenders to be free on a promise to appear. Matt Caron, Fox 61 News.
All right, let's get another check on the weather. The first check of the weather for the news at 6 right now. It's going to be a wet night across the state.
Yeah, Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank joining us now. We see that rain moving through the state behind you, Rach.
Yeah, and I think it will fill in even more as we're heading towards the news at 10 and 11 o'clock tonight. Luckily, nothing too bad out there for the evening commute, though, which we like to see. But if we widen out the picture, you'll see more numerous showers and really some steadier rain back through eastern Pennsylvania, through New Jersey. Again, that is all going to be moving into Connecticut this evening and overnight. And even what you see here through Ohio will likely fill in a little bit more as it heads our way as well. So off and on rain as we head through tonight and through the day tomorrow before we dry things out. But look at these temperatures. Temperatures are in the 50s right now, which is way above the average high temperature, not to mention it's 6 o'clock at night. And we'll see temperatures hold steady and even rise a little bit as we head towards daybreak tomorrow. So while it will be wet again tomorrow, it is certainly warm. You do not need a heavy winter jacket, although definitely grab an umbrella. It's not an all-day washout, meaning it's not raining, every second of the day tomorrow. There will be kind of breaks in the action where we're seeing areas of patchy fog and mist, and then it kind of fills back in again. As we head towards later tomorrow afternoon, and especially towards this time tomorrow night, we're in the process of drying things out, and we're calmer as we head towards the end of the week. We'll take a full look at your forecast coming up.
All right, Rachel, thank you. A major blow to Sikorsky, the Connecticut-based aircraft manufacturer, losing out on a $1.3 billion Army contract.
Fox 61's political reporter Emma Wolfhorst joining us here in studio. Emma, what does this loss mean for the company and on a larger scale, the entire state?
Well, Ben, Jen, state leaders are calling this announcement severely disappointing. Yesterday's decision means the company will lose out on $50 million in new tax incentives from the state, but lawmakers tell me they're still optimistic about Sikorsky's future here in Connecticut.
We really wanted that contract, and it was an important contract. But that doesn't change the fact that Sikorsky is still a really, really important company here in the state.
Sikorsky, owned by Lockheed Martin, faced off against Texas-based Bell in hopes of winning a $1.3 billion Army contract. The goal, manufacture a new aircraft to replace the Army's fleet of Black Hawk helicopters, which Sikorsky has been making for about 40 years.
The Army knows Sikorsky is, the best in the business.
But the Stratford-based company lost out, the Army announcing Monday in a statement calling the decision-making process deliberate and disciplined. But Connecticut lawmakers aren't happy.
It's disappointing because we know what that contract would have meant. I think they picked an inferior product.
Earlier this year, the state legislature approved $75 million in tax credits and incentives for Sikorsky, $50 million of that contingent on the manufacturer winning this contract.
No, you do not get credit for this phase of the project. They didn't win it.
But it's not a total grounding for one of the state's largest employers. Legislators say the state will continue its relationship with Sikorsky and look at options to further the partnership in the upcoming legislative session.
They made it very clear they love Connecticut. They want to stay here. They want to grow in Connecticut. And I don't think this contract will change that.
What we want to do is continue to have bipartisan dialogue between ourselves, the administration, to make sure that we work together to keep good paying creating jobs in the state of Connecticut.
Now, I'm told there's another contract Sikorsky is still in the running for, and state leaders say the company isn't leaving Connecticut or laying off employees anytime soon. The company also has the option to challenge the award. A spokesperson with Sikorsky told me they weren't doing interviews right now, but will evaluate next steps after reviewing the feedback from the Army. Ben, Jen.
All right, Emma, thank you. Newington police have arrested a man in connection to a hit and run. Xander Estremera appeared in court this afternoon. Police say he crashed his car at the intersection of Cedar Street and Willard Avenue last night. Estremera ran from the scene and was taken into custody a short time later. Police say there were injuries involved, but didn't specify how many people were injured, just that their injuries were non-life-threatening. Estremera was also in possession of a gun, but does not have a permit and has 2 protective orders preventing him from having a firearm. Newington police are also investigating a shots fired incident happening just a few minutes before that crash, but no one's facing charges in that incident as of tonight. We now know the names of 2 people killed in an accident in North Haven last month. Police say Brianna Sable and Anton Cologne Duffy were driving on I-91 on November 30th when their car went off the road and hit a tree, causing it to catch fire. Both were pronounced dead on scene. The incident is still under investigation.
Well, check out this photo right here. A truck ended up on top of a car in North Haven this morning. Police say that it happened on Washington Avenue around 7 a.m. A witness told police that the truck somehow turned into the car, but officials are still investigating what happened here. No injuries, surprisingly, were reported. It's scary.